So here we are at Online Twilight Part 2. I've been asked to look at Catholic social teaching for this part of the Twilight, and I'll do that a bit differently from the previous part. We'll mainly be looking at slides and video clips, and most of my resources or the video clips come from Caritas New Zealand and Caritas in general. So what we'll do is I'll show you, the format will be, I'll show you different slides. Some will have question discussions and video clips, and just work your way through that and discuss things as they appear. So that's how this part of the Twilight will work. So all the best, enjoy being in your cozy staff rooms if that's where you're working, and good luck. Bye.
first heard about Benefit Education Service Trust when I was looking for some help. My son has Asperger's and he was bullied quite badly at school and actually had a nervous breakdown. And so I withdrew from school straight away and went on a benefit because I had to leave my job. Often we have people who ring and who have been through some very stressful times, and you can hear the relief in that there's someone there that will walk with them. Human dignity comes from the fact that we're all born in the image and likeness of God, and every person has the right to have that human dignity respected. When we advocate for people, I think they feel that they have someone who's supporting them, someone who's in their corner. They feel, I think they feel that their dignity is actually being upheld. It was really welcoming. I always remember Carol, the receptionist. That was my first impression when I went in there, and she was so motherly and she was just lovely, really kind and caring. I actually found out after I'd been on a benefit for a few years that I was on the wrong benefit. So I went to see Teresa and she sorted all that out for me, and I got a retrospective payment. Well, Hutt Valley Benefit Education Service Trust was started. I think the Compassion Sisters looked into what was missing in the Hutt Valley area and decided that advocacy for beneficiaries was not being done in the Hutt Valley area. The public perception of people on benefits just makes them feel really bad about themselves, and I think part of our role is to empower them to feel strong again. One of the main barriers is that they're not socially included, that they're excluded from normal participation in life like other people. I mean, when you've got your children and they can't they can't go to the sports clubs, or they can't see the movies, or it must be really hard saying no to kiddies. You have to be really careful. You have to budget very, very carefully. There's no extras. It's just really, it does cover your basic needs. Yeah, so it is hard, very hard to live on. I think God calls us in all ways in the Gospels and everything to love one another. So we can't love one another unless we're able to uphold people's dignity. I mean, that is loving others. So I think that's our greatest call, and we need to respond, all of us. At the time, I thought that in the future I'd love to just work for them because they do a wonderful job. And so when my son finished school, I rang Teresa and asked if I could come and work for them as a volunteer and train to be an advocate, which I've done. There could be any day that we get sick and that we end up on a benefit, or that our job gets made redundant. Everyone is at risk. So as a society, we've decided to help people who, for whatever reason, lose their income. And, it could be any one of us any day.
Our St Vincent de Paul mobile van, known as the Fulfill van in Rotorua, started in 2008. It's a van that goes out into the poorer areas of Rotorua, and we give out Milo, soup, sandwiches and fresh fruit to those children or adults that want it. We have parishioners that come and make the sandwiches.
When I'm doing them, I actually think, some little mouth will eat these. And it's quite a nice feeling, actually.
And then we wait for our volunteers to come and help on the van, which are usually the JPC students.
Our school in the main, it's a Decile 7 school, and most of our students don't see that degree of poverty in their daily life. So as part of their faith development and our understanding that we need to have a preferential option for the poor, that we felt this was a two-way beneficial thing, that our students would get as much out of this as the people that they were helping.
So my role is that I coordinate all the student volunteers. Yeah, we have a really good group of students who volunteer, and they're all really reliable and really seem to enjoy doing it, so it makes my job a lot easier.
Louise was coordinating the whole thing, and she needed volunteers to actually go out on each individual day, and she asked me if I could help out. And being a prefect and Lasallian captain this year, I kind of felt like it was a responsibility.
We go out on a Tuesday and a Wednesday because that's when most people run out of money. They're waiting for their benefit or their pay. They run out of food in the cupboard, and that's when we get the most requests for food. And just to see them out there talking and joking with the kids is it's just great.
A highlight for me has been seeing how much happiness it brings to these kids that we help. And generally it's the same kids each week, so you get to build a bit of a relationship with them, and and it's really nice.
Being a Catholic and Lasallian, we're taught that everyone is made in God's image and we're all equal, so we should all be treated with the same respect and dignity. And by providing them with the service, we give them that dignity and respect.
It's just a hand up to help them get through just before they get their pay. It's not a hand out, it's a hand up.
Well, we've got so much, and there's so many people that haven't got an awful lot. And if we can help with any way at all, we do that.
It's doing something, it's hands-on, it's faith in action. That's what it is.
And tablet, want to come? For my birthday? I got my home from there.
Stewardship is being aware of the community of life, our relationship within that, and the impact that we have within the community of life. Pakatu Nuku ki Tauranga, which means Earth Promise, it's our centre, looks at how we can grow together in a more healthy and holistic way. And through that, our relationship with God, the divine, deepens.
Our focus here at Papatūānuku ki Taurangi is growing a community around a garden and providing food for families. The growing community around a garden involves working alongside our employees and our volunteers. It also includes working with people out in the community.
I was on sickness benefit. Bro Mike, he encouraged me to come down, and yeah, so I thought I'd come down and see what happens. And this was a year ago, It's better than what I used to do, my mate. Yeah, and it just keeps me busy, Keeps me busy.
How do you get people to understand stewardship and care of creation? The best way to do that is getting them to recognise that if they want to be healthy, their food needs to be healthy. So you need to look after that, be aware of where your food is growing.
We're constantly making compost to improve the quality of the soil. And when we improve the quality of the soil, we improve the produce that we grow. And when we improve the produce, we're giving healthier food to create healthier families in our community. It's not just food. It's a caring environment. It's a safe place for all who come here.
I met Sister Bridget through my gardening course and my cooking course, and someone suggested to me that I go and ask if I could have a tree. The significance about having this tree planted here was that it was my granddaughter's birthday, and she was turning 1, and I wanted to plant her after birth. It was quite a blessing. It was something that, to be in this area, in this place, it was like having something you never had, you know, growing up.
And presently we're looking at question number 407. We've been looking at our participation in the social life. We've looked at authority in society. We've looked at how authority is to exercise that in a legitimate way. And we've mentioned along the way in the last couple of episodes this idea of the common good. This particular question now considers what is the common good. So question 407, by the common good is meant the sum total of those conditions of social life which allow people as groups and as individuals to reach their proper fulfilment. Let's look at that now. By the common good, this is what we mean, the sum total, everything that contributes then to those conditions, in other words, the circumstances of our lives that contribute to our social life, our interaction with one another, not just our own personal individual life, and all of those are very important, but how we associate with one another to bring about the greatest good for everybody, but especially for the individual, which allow people as groups and as individuals to reach their proper fulfilment. So if every individual is achieving his or her PB or personal best, this proper fulfilment, then of course the whole community is achieving its PB or its personal goodness or its best possible fulfilment or achievement. And so the common good then is very important. We need to have those things in place to be able to bring about the common good. Now, the first thing we understand is that, of course, we are social creatures. That, as it says in sacred scripture, it's not good for man to be alone. That's one of the earliest comments in the book of Genesis. And indeed, most of us would understand that, you know, some people feel lonely, they feel alone, they have solitude, or some people just want to get away from it all. You know, the extremes all the way through. But deep down, all of us are made for each other. Ultimately, we are made for the social networking of heaven, where we're going to have complete social beatitude. And so even now then, as social beings, our nature is understood to be social, and the good for each of us is going to be the best good for everybody, and it's all necessarily interrelated. That's what makes the common good. Now, the common good is in reference to each individual person, as I've mentioned. We're not an island, we're not isolated, we're not to be self-absorbed, but rather we are related, you know, with each other. And in some way, we're all called to gather together to seek the common good. Now, probably we get used to this thinking, oh, well, the family does that. You know, mum cooks the nice meal, dad's looking after the house or fixing up repairs, the kids do their chores. Everybody works together to have a harmonious family life or common life. It doesn't always work out perfectly, but if everyone is charitable, willing the good of the other or the whole good, then of course it's going to work out smoothly. When mum's got to shout at the kids because they're lazy or they don't do what they're asked, well, of course, that's not going to build up, but rather it's going to be a tear in the fabric. We need to all work together to bring about the common good for everybody. Because we know perfectly well if Johnny doesn't take the garbage out and the next week, you know, the garbage hasn't been taken out this week, well, of course, it's going to bank up for another week, and then you've got the possibility of all sorts of germs and other smell and everything. So everybody has to make their contribution in the whole family. Similarly, then in society, everybody makes their contribution to the overall good of society. Now, when we talk about the definition, which actually in this part here, the sum total, says here, the sum total of those conditions of social life which allow people as groups and as individuals to reach their personal fulfilment. You know, the Gaudium et Spes, which is one of the documents of the Second Vatican Council, that's really an abbreviation of the whole document. Gaudium et Spes number 26 actually says this: the sum total of social conditions which allow people, either as groups or as individuals, to reach their fulfilment more fully and more easily. Now, this is very important, you see. To reach our personal fulfilment more fully, we need schools. We need opportunities for sport. We need music conservatoriums. We need all range of things that everyone can realise their potential. Why? Because of our own, we can't. We can't achieve that. If we don't have running tracks, we're going to run through the bush. Well, that's going to work for a while, but then we can't have running competitions. That's why people compete against one another. We don't have science laboratories. We don't have people who fund that. Then, of course, we're not going to get ahead of the various difficulties that do come by way of illness. And so on and so forth. All of these come together to bring about the greatest good. We think about electricity. Well, there wouldn't be the electricity as we see on country energy advertisements of there's somebody who's out there fixing the lamp poles in the middle of winter when the rain pouring down and there's been a lightning strike and something's blown a transformer. We need people out there doing those things that we can enjoy the life that we do have. This is all for the common good. It's also for the individual's good because if he's got a family, there's a job that's there for him, and so on and so forth. So all of it's working together more fully, more easily. We think how easy it is for us to travel from one place to another because people have worked together to build planes and trains and automobiles and all these wonderful things that convey us from one place to another. We go there easily. We can go on the internet now. We can get so many resources off the internet, where once upon a time you'd have to travel down to the library, you'd have to go through big tomes of books, try and waste time trying to find this. And now at the click of a button, you can have all sorts of information in your room and you haven't even left your desk. Everything is easier and certainly the fullness is there. We understand then, what is the common good? By the common good is meant the sum total of those conditions of social life which will allow people as groups and as individuals to reach their proper fulfilment. And certainly our greatest fulfilment in the common good is to work with each other for eternal life. The priest is ordained to help other people. The church is there to assist people to get the sacraments to be able to come to God. All of this, of course, we need to help one another to bring about holiness, not tearing the fabric away by having sin or breaking down the fabric of society through human sin, but rather to build it up in a way that is really united and wonderful. And in this way, of course, we arrive at personal holiness, because when we help others, we are graced, we are gifted, we are blessed with merit. And so when we help others to get to heaven, then it's the greatest good. I think it says in Scripture there somewhere that those who keep the commandments and teach others to live the commandments, they will be especially blessed. So this is part of the work of the common good and the individual.
Everyone from Te Teko is connected to the mountain, so I guess my Te Teko side of the family is how I'm connected to it.
It's in our PPR. Everyone's got a PPR.
Yeah, ko puto aki tōku maunga. Yeah.
Te Ropu Haurongo is a group that was formed to go in and encourage and support families to develop and be educated and to be there for the rangatahi. Our ropu ideally would like to get them before they get to the system. We'd like to empower the family to develop and take responsibility and be in control of their own destiny. Even though they're suffering in whatever poverty they're in, I see our rōpū as going in and bringing us all together for the common good of those families, for whānau hapu iwi.
The common good is making sure no one misses out.
A day for me as a whānau advocate can be quite hectic. Sometimes I get calls at night from victims of violence or whatever. I've now got a relationship with the local policeman, so if we get any rangatahi or teenager that may do tagging or something on the shops in Te Teko, he'll give me a ring.
She said, look, I think you'd be really interested in joining in with this rōpū that we're putting together. So one of the big things I'd like to bring in terms of working with, especially rangatahi, is encouraging the older men in their lives to have, if you like, some more leadership skills.
Our men are like tūhoi warriors. When they're in the kapahaka, you'll see their potential, who they are. They bring out the beauty in themselves because they love it. But out there on the streets itself, it's totally different again. So we need to, awhi our tamariki, especially our young men and that. There's a lot of love and care that needs to be given out there.
I really put my heart into it. I'll come and support whenever I can, because the majority of these children that are getting into trouble are of tūhoi descendant.
The older generation are a big need for the work we do, because a lot of families are so fragmented now in society, and it's all cultures, not just one. So for me, their support is really important. They will come with us into families and provide that, grandmother, kraua, queer support for the families while we're doing the work.
It can't just stop here. The whole of the area is involved in it. It is our mokopuna. They are our mokopuna. They need support.
So you've had a look and a chat and a discussion and learning, I hope, about 4 of the principles of Catholic social teaching. That's human dignity, common good, preferential option for the poor, and stewardship. So that's been quite a lot to talk about. There's another 3 principles: participation, solidarity, and subsidiarity. And I've got those ready for you to look at in a second part that you might like to do another time, because there's a lot of videos to watch and a lot of discussion to have. So I suggest that you pause and do the next part another day or another time. And I hope you enjoyed this part of the Twilight and look forward to looking at the next part. All the best with your teaching, and I hope all is going well in your schools. Bye.
And in this particular program now, in question number 403, we actually look at what is the principle of subsidiarity. The principle of subsidiarity states that a community of a higher order should not assume the task belonging to a community of a lower order or deprive it of its authority. It should rather support it in a case of need. Now, this is a very important principle which really needs to be understood. And it's one of those time-honoured principles that has always proven most effective and therefore most truthful in its goodness. And so the principle of subsidiarity, like I was saying in the last episode, the higher authority doesn't interfere, like micromanage or get involved with or intervene in the lower authority's particular realm, unless, of course, the lower authority asks the higher authority, or there's something going on down here that the common good is not being upheld by that particular authority. And so a higher authority intervenes and brings about the common good or justice or peace. Ordinarily, then, the principle of subsidiarity is to safeguard the goodness of everybody's freedom within the particular association that they are in community with or in the social gathering of those people. The principle of subsidiarity has always been used in the Catholic Church. And so that although the central power is found in St. Peter and the Holy Father and the Vicar of Christ, from that then he appoints all the way down through the church. We think about first of all, Pope Benedict XVI is in fact the Bishop of Rome. But as the bishop among all equals, he then has a certain privilege and appointing other bishops all the way down through the whole church. What happens is each bishop is then appointed to a diocese and each bishop is in charge of that diocese. The Holy Father doesn't intervene in that diocese unless things are going very, very wrong. And sometimes people get cranky with their bishops. Oh, why doesn't the Rome intervene and do something? It's because the church has this principle of mind in not micromanaging every single area. The bishop similarly then gives power and authority to the parish priest, so that in every particular parish, the priest is looking after. Then the parishioners say, oh, why doesn't the bishop do something and kick this guy out and fix it all up? Because the bishop has to safeguard the principle of subsidiarity. Unless things are going very, very wrong, the bishop must allow that freedom of autonomy for the parish priest to be able to organise within the parish. Now, obviously, that puts a great deal of trust in every individual authority down the way. It's the same with parents, though. Parents then have to give a certain trust and authority to their own children. If the children are at play, mum doesn't come rushing and say, oh no, don't play like this, play like this. Kids have to be able to play in their own way, and parents have to stand back and allow children to have their own association and play. However, of course, there's a greater need for a certain guidance and formation in that particular case. The principle of subsidiarity within work, you've got the big boss at the top, the CEO, and then of course they give authority all the way down the chain, and everybody has to then perform with various criteria to make sure that there's a profit at the end of the day. The principle of subsidiarity then is states that the community of a higher order, that higher authority with more power, with more responsibility, more duties, should not assume, that means take to themselves, the task belonging to a lower order and deprive it of its authority. Now, we could say that sadly today in China this is happening. The state is intervening in the area of reproduction in the family and saying you cannot have other children. In fact, if you do, you're going to be punished. You'll be ostracised, your land will be taken away, and in some cases even there's been death. And you say, no, this is not correct. Everybody must have that free autonomy before God. Now, of course, if people act against the law of the land, they put themselves in danger of all the repercussions of that, because if the higher authority has the power or the wrongful power in this case, and the ability to inflict punishment unjustly and uncharitably, then that puts people in a very bad situation. So you can see clearly this principle has a great deal of common sense about it. In fact, we can almost say that the intervention of a state in any particular area, whether it be in the freedom or initiative of anyone else, is going to have its own bad effect. You think about, this is what happened with regard to communism and totalitarianism. After a while, the people don't want to work. So what's the point? Some people have initiative, and good conscientious people work a little bit harder. They come up with a few good ideas. They put all their effort in. But if they're just going to get a bowl of rice like everybody else, after a while it just stifles that human initiative, which of course develops society and brings good to everybody. Well, this is one of the problems with it. The church has always been against that sort of totalitarian regime. The higher order then, whatever area, whether it be government, whether it be police, whether it be the army. You see in some countries where there's a dictatorship, where there's a hierarchy, or it could be just an ordinary government society like the the Department of Children that we have in Australia. If DOCS intervenes too early in a problem family, and sometimes DOCS gets criticised, they've done this, they've done that, and we don't know all of the facts because a child may be grossly suffering. But they're very, very slow to intervene because history has taught us the family must be upheld. The parents' rights are very important, but only after some time can the higher authority of the government intervene in a family, which is, you've got to find the balance here, and it's very slow to make criticism and find fault with people who are trying to do the best they can to uphold all of these wonderful principles and the goodness of every human person's uniqueness and freedom and initiative. So not to interfere, not to intervene in the internal life of a community or person, certainly not depriving it of its functions, taking its authority away. And that's why in government we often hear about, the federal government's taking away state powers. Again, the same principle is being acted upon. The higher authority needs to support the lower authority, and that's why the federal government must be very careful to make sure that it doesn't assume to itself in an arrogant way or arrogate to itself powers that are not theirs to have. The higher authority is there to help to coordinate and to support. For instance, we can't build all the roads, we can't put up all the electric poles, we can't build the hospitals and the schools. The federal government comes in and puts the money in there, coming from, of course, our taxes, to make sure that these social institutions are in place for the good of the common order for all the people. Always there must be this view to the common good. So God doesn't reserve then and exercise all power. God then shares that power. So God is the upholder of the beautiful principle of subsidiarity. In fact, sometimes people criticise God. Why does God stand back? Why doesn't he just shoot these people down with a lightning bolt? Well, of course, God gives freedom to each individual. And he is the most perfect gentleman when it comes to not intervening in other people's authority. He allows people to act and to react in ways that he entrusts every creature with this beautiful power, that we may function in our own particular area of performance and be able to act in accordance with our own particular nature to bring about the goodness for everybody. So God governs with respect to our human freedom, and we all should do the same, to govern with respect to other people's freedom. We need to be ministers of divine providence. God puts all these beautiful things here. We need to use them wisely and in accordance with our own particular abilities, always safeguarding the goodness of the other person and making sure that we don't intervene in such a way that is impinging on the person's freedom or the goodness of association with that particular group. And so larger bodies then can't substitute for the initiative and the responsibility of individuals or their intermediaries. They can't just come in heavy-handed and start to control and micromanage in a way that really stifles the freedom of the individual and the initiative of the individual and overall the common good. So the principle of subsidiarity then, it should rather support, the higher authority must support in the case of the need of the lower authority. This principle states that a community of a higher order should not assume the task belonging to a community of a lower order or deprive it of its authority. This is the beautiful God acting in our life and in our world, so we need to be very grateful for that.
The Philippines is no stranger to emergencies. It's a country that is beset by all sorts of emergencies, from typhoons and tsunamis, with earthquakes, even volcanoes. And in fact, it's ranked as the third most at-risk nation in the world for natural disasters. Cyclone Haiyan struck the Philippines on the 8th of November in 2013. This was the largest to have ever certainly hit the Philippines, but also the largest to have ever struck any landmass. Immediately following the typhoon, Caritas Philippines went around and, working with the local church, were very much involved in doing the initial assessments, identifying what was the impact, how had communities been affected, what were the immediate needs. One of the dioceses that was most severely affected was Palo, Diocese of Palo. The first time I went to Palo, I flew in with an Air Force Hercules, a C-130, and the palm trees had all broken off halfway up. every single one, not just sort of 2 or 3 here and there, but every one. There was rubbish and just the debris of the storm, the shelters and houses that had been broken apart by the wind and the waves. It was just everywhere. But already people were starting to rebuild. They were starting to clear away some of that debris. And there was a group of the relief workers, the priests, even the Archbishop was there, and they were planning for their activities. Subsidiarity is all about working with the local organisations. People like myself and others who came have got some of the technical assistance, but we don't understand necessarily what the immediate needs are without being told by that local community component. Caritas is and embodies who the church is, and at each diocesan level, even almost at each parish level, there is what we call a diocesan social action centre, and they are at the hub of the community, and they know best what are the community needs, how have the community been impacted, and they're then able to share that information with Caritas Philippines and to the wider Caritas Confederation. 3 months later, when I went back, I was still staggered by just the level of destruction that was still there, but so much had already started to rebuild. Markets were starting to operate. People were going about their day-to-day business. People had got the tarpaulins that we distributed, and they were covering so many of the houses and the shelters. The more we do to assist a community to prepare themselves, recognising that the local community are the first responders, the better able they are to respond to the emergency when it does happen.
L'Arche is a faith community made up of people with and without intellectual disabilities who choose to live together in homes, like a family situation. L'Arche began with very strong Catholic roots, though it's very ecumenical now, and we welcome people of different religions into our community. It began in 1964 by Jean Vanier, a Canadian man who moved to France and invited men from institutions to live with him as a way of showing that people with disabilities are of equal value and need to be part of our community. The people with intellectual disabilities in our community we call core members because they're at the heart and the core of our community. They're central to the reason we live together, and they're what has called L'Arche into being. One of L'Arche's core values is that everybody is of unique and sacred value. So we really value everybody's gifts, and one way of showing that is that the core members participate in the community around them. So that involves being involved in different churches and community groups, going to horse riding, equestrian, going to yoga, those types of participations.
I do house meetings and we have discussion, what's happened every day. I go to I go to St. Patrick's Church on Sundays. Father Michael talks to me and chats to me.
Participation is about ensuring that everybody can participate in the life of the community around them and seek fulfillment.
Hallelujah, praise the Lord, right where we are, amen.
We value the dreams and aspirations of the people with disabilities, acknowledging that they can participate in the world around them and give value. As a faith community, we recognise that it's the right of every human being to grow deeply in their spirituality and become closer with God. And so we have a rhythm of evening prayers within each household and monthly prayers as a whole community, which we invite the wider community to participate in as well. As a way for the prayers to become inclusive, we have photos and pictures to use during evening prayers. Because some of the core members are non-verbal, pictures are a simple way for them to express what they want to share with God and with the people that they share their life with.
We have a picture of Jean Vanier. We'd like to say a prayer for Jean Vanier and thank you, God, for giving him the vision to establish L'Arche. May we continue to live in a spirit of mutuality, love, and peace.
Caritas Challenge was about Marian College and Cathedral College coming together as two colleges to have an event where we could understand what it was like for people who aren't as fortunate as us. We were going out of our comfort zones, living in solidarity with others.
Hi and welcome to the Caritas Challenge. We're into our third hour now. It's starting to rain a bit, so hopefully it doesn't set in. Murphy played tenor saxophone.
We did this by building a cardboard city of sorts, so we created this outside some of our classrooms, but it wasn't just about that, it was about doing activities where we could understand this idea of solidarity as well. For me personally, solidarity is that really understanding what other people are going through, not just in hearing it or seeing it, really putting yourself in that situation where you can feel what these people may be feeling. The girls, we were kind of situated down this end. We built kind of a big shelter so that we could all snuggle together and keep warm, but the boys decided to stay down this end.
You got blankets?
Yeah.
You can snuggle up? No snuggling up with the boys.
This is our window. Hi! We're at our front door.
It's just a great opportunity to combine a lot of experiences like fundraising, raising awareness, activities, fun activities, community or communal experiences, and also a spiritual experience like a mass or a vigil.
Then we did the water activity, which we did over here. And we wanted to do it in like a big space so that people could really get the measure of how far people would have to go to actually get water. So it kind of gave people a bit of an understanding of what it would be like not to collect water from a tap.
And along with that activity we had the paper bag activity, and that was when we were working in groups and we had to basically, it was called Sweat It.
I think it was a really good experience in terms of feeling a little bit of solidarity, just getting a little glimpse of what other people in other parts of the world actually going through. Because, I mean, for us it was just 24 hours and it was raining, so it was a little bit more real. So just living a part of a life what other people have to go through for a long time. What we got from the feedbacks is a lot of practical. They can actually do practical things to fundraise. Altogether, we raised $2,524.80.
We ended the Caritas Challenge with a mass because we thought we were going to originally do a cardboard city around the outside cathedral, but that was a logistical nightmare, so we decided to have the Mass outside the cathedral.
It was significant for us to have the Mass outside the broken cathedral because it kind of symbolised that despite the fact that the cathedral is broken, we're still there, we're still hopeful, we're a hopeful, faithful community.
That's all, folks.